Hey guys, this is Jadiel from the Fourth Angels Learning Center. Today I just wanted to bring a little clarity to the understanding of the moon, the use of the moon for times and appointed times and the timing. So I wanted to bring our attention to First Genesis chapter 1, and then I wanted to kind of break down the elements of time that we received from the beginning, from creation. So looking at this, Genesis chapter 1, we're going to start from verse 14. Verse 14 gives us the understanding of the fourth day of creation, when he created the luminaries in the sky to basically rule the day and to rule the night. And I want us to keep this in mind when we go and break down these other words. So looking at this, we have Genesis chapter 1 verse 14, and it says, "And Elohim said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night. Let them be for signs," meaning beacons or monuments, something to reveal something to you. "And for seasons," this word seasons is moed or moedims, meaning appointed times, referring to the times of the year in which Yah's people assemble before him. It also says for days and for years. So the lights in the firmament in the heaven was to divide the day from the night, to be signs and appointed times, and for days and for years. Verse 15 says, "And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth." And it so was, meaning that it was created to give light. It was created to give light. Verse 16, "God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also," or the stars also. Verse 17, "And Elohim set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." Verse 18, "And to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. Even in the morning were the fourth day." This is very important to understand when understanding the calculation of our calendar, understanding the calculation of days and years and things like that. And we have to understand that the lights that was created is what we're indicating in our daily life for days and for years and months and things like that. When we look at this, it says that there's two lights to indicate certain things. To rule the day, of course, is the sun, rules the day, gives the heat, gives the light, and also divides the darkness, like removes, it breaks the darkness. When the sun rises, the darkness vanishes away. So it destroys the darkness or removes the darkness during the day. And then when the sun leaves, the moon then comes and shines a lesser light during the night. And these elements are in the sky for not only telling day and night, but also, according to verse 14, they are for signs and for seasons. They are for signs and appointed times. What are these appointed times? Of course, the Moedim, we're referring to the feast days. The feast days is very important to indicate, to recognize that they're referring to the feast days. Now, there seems to be an issue with the fact that it doesn't say moon in the book of Genesis. So I want to clarify that it is referring to the moon, the sun, moon, and stars. Before we go into our word study on the three words that represent month and moon in scripture, I want to first clarify this view that the word moon is not located in the book of Genesis, therefore is not referring to the moon. Let's go to the book of Psalms. The book of Psalms 136, looking at verse 8 and 9. Psalms 136, looking at verse 8 and 9. Verse 8 says, "The sun," let me read verse 7. It says, "To him that made the great lights, for his mercy forever." Verse 8, "The sun to rule the day, for his mercy forever." Verse 9, "The moon and stars to rule by night, for his mercy endureth forever." and that word moon is Yoreak, Yoreak, and it means moon. The root word is Yarek, which means lunation or month. But we're going to get there. So we clarified that in Psalms 136, verse 7 to 9, it recaps the creation account and recognizes that the sun was created to rule the day, the moon and the stars was created to rule the night. So we cannot negate the fact that the moon is the lesser light that was created in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14. Now, going back, this is the big issue when it comes to indicating the correct calendar. There's a calendar going around in which individuals are completely removing the use of the moon, totally removing the use of the moon as to indicate what day of the month it actually is. So we clearly see that during creation, the lesser light, according to Psalms 136, is the same, the moon, which ruled the night, is the same luminary that was created in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14 to rule the night. Let's continue. So, one of the questions is the word Kodesh. The word Kodesh, it means new, renew, to repair, and it's talking about the renewing of the moon cycle or the month. When it's a new month, it is because the moon have renewed its cycle of light. Remember, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14 to 18, Yah created the lights in the heaven to rule the night and the day. So let's look at this. The word Kodesh is used in Genesis chapter 7. Let's look at this. Genesis chapter 7, looking at verse 11. This is during the time of Noah, when he's on the ark. When Noah was on the ark, he was still making sure he counted the days and the months while he was on the ark, while it was raining. And it says here in Genesis chapter 7, verse 11, and in the 600th year of Noah's life, meaning he was 600 years old, in the second month, that word month is Kodesh, the 17th day of the month, that word is Kodesh, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up and the windows of heaven were open. So, second month, the 17th day of the month, the word Kodesh is also used as a general month, not necessarily meaning the beginning of the month, but also the month in general. Let's look at Exodus chapter 12 now. This is one of the most important verses because this is when Israel is in Egypt and they're being basically restored to the understanding of the calendar as well as the understanding of his Torah, which happens later on. It says here in Exodus chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, it says, and Yah spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month, that word is Kodesh, shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year. So, he's indicating the years now, but he's indicating the years by determining the month. He's saying this is the first month, or this month is the beginning of the month of the year. So we need to realize that the months is extremely important because he gives us the months in order to count for the year. But the word here for month is Kodesh as well. So we have the word month is used for Kodesh. The context of the verses is referring to a month. It's not just new. When we read in Genesis 7 verse 11, it wasn't the 17th day of the new. It was the 17th day of the second month, or the new month, or the repaired month, or the renewed cycle of the month. Let's continue to see if this word Kodesh, meaning month, connects with other verses using a different word. Now, the context may be the same, but the elements, the Kodesh, the understanding of what Kodesh is referring to, and the understanding of the other words. The next word we're going to look at is the word Yarak. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 21. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 13. Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 13. And it says, "And she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off of her, and shall remain in your house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month." A full month. That word month is yarak. And just to indicate, just to give, I'm going to make another study on the day. That word full is yom, meaning that it has a different context other than day. So a full month, it's not a day month, but a full month. That word month is yarek, or yarak. Sorry, yarak. That word yarak means month or lunation. Lunation means the cycle of the moon. Cycle of the moon. And it also means month. We're going to see how this word yarak means not only month in scripture, but also moon in scripture as well. So looking at this, he says that a full month, and after that thou shalt go in unto her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. So the word month here is yarak, and the meaning of yarak is month and lunation, which means the moon cycle. Moon cycle or moonlight cycle. So we see that in Deuteronomy chapter 21 verse 13, it's the word month in the context. 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 2. 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 2 says, "And all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto King Solomon at the feast in the month Ethanim." So it names the month, which is the 7th month. Now watch this. It says the feast in the month Ethanim, Yarak, which is the 7th Kodesh. The month Ethanim, which is the 7th Kodesh. Using both Kodesh and Yarak interchangeably. Yarak meaning lunation or cycle of the moon, as well as month, and Kodesh meaning new or repair or renew. So the 7th renewed cycle or renewed month. There's a plural aspect to it. Let's look at that aspect in Exodus chapter 2. Exodus chapter 2 is also referred to, Yarak is also used as months, referring to multiple months or months in general. Looking at Exodus chapter 2 verse 2, it says, "And the woman conceived and bare a son. When she saw him that he was goodly, a goodly child, she hid him for 3 months." That word months is Yarak. That word Yarak means month or lunation. So there was a monthly cycle, 3 cycles of the moon or cycles of the month. She hid this the baby. I believe this is referring to Moses. Now let's see the verse that uses Yarak for moon. So we see that the word Yarak in scripture is used interchangeably for moon and for month at the same time. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 60. The book of Isaiah chapter 60. We're going to go to verse 20. Isaiah 60 verse 20. And it says, matter of fact, I may use verse 19 and I'm going to use verse 20. It says, "The sun shall no more go down, neither shall your moon withdraw itself, for the Yah shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of the morning shall be ended." Of course, this is a future aspect of the New Jerusalem, which we see in Revelation. But at the same time, the moon here being used as a sign to indicate that it's a certain time. It says that the word moon is Yarak. The word moon is Yarak. Okay? So the word, it cannot mean month, In this context, the sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon withdraw itself. And that word withdraw itself means asef, which means to take away. So that word moon cannot mean month. Yarak means both moon and month in scripture. So that should be some sort of proof of the connection between the word yarak for month and the word for moon. Let's continue. Interesting, some people bring up Jericho. Now, it doesn't matter what other people do as far as what they worship. There's many individuals in history, in scripture, that worship the sun, sun gods. It doesn't mean that the sun, or using the sun to determine the day, is pagan just because pagans worship the sun. That's illogical. That's not reasonable. If it was something that they've created themselves, that would be totally different, such as Christmas tree, Easter bunny, all of these other pagan things that people take from pagans and adopt into their own worship or celebration of biblical things. But looking at this, the next word is yada yak. Yareyak. Now, the word Jericho is Yareko, and it's a combination of H3394, which is the word we're referring to, we're going to talk about, which is Yareyak, and the word Ruach, which is interesting. And it means fragrance of the moon. Fragrance of the moon. Many people believe that Jericho was a town of pagan moon worshippers. And so they named the town after the moon, or the offerings given to the moon, the fragrance of the moon. So now looking at this, Yareyak, it means moon in scripture. It doesn't mean anything else but moon in scripture. So we're going to look at a few verses. Let's go to the book of Psalms. We're going to look at a few verses in the book of Psalms. Let's go to Psalms chapter 8, verse 3. Psalms chapter 8, verse 3, and it says, "When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained." The moon and the stars which thou hast ordained. Here's the interesting aspect to this word, Yareyak. Yareyak. That the word means moon, and in the scripture it means moon primarily. 26 times in scripture it is only referring to moon. The interesting thing is that the root word of this word moon is Yerak, which means month or lunation, cycle of the moon. So the root word of the word moon is month. Most people think it should be the other way around. Me, I don't care. This is what's there in scripture. Yareyak is the word for moon 26 times in scripture. The root word of Yareyak, or the word that's comparison to Yareyak, is Yerak, which we just saw is used interchangeably in scripture for month and moon. So the word moon, Psalms 8 verse 3, when I considered your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained. Psalms 104, let's look at Psalms 104. Psalms 104 verse 19. Psalms 104 verse 19, it says, he appointed the moon. That word moon is H3394, Yareyak, or Yareyak. It means moon. He appointed the moon for seasons. This is the same word, moed, which we saw in Genesis chapter 1 verse 14, which is referring to appointed times or the feast days, or many different appointed times that occur outside the feast days. He says that he appointed the moon for appointed times or seasons. The sun knows his going down. So he appointed the moon, just like it says in the book of Genesis, for seasons. Let's go to Genesis to see if we could see the similar wording. Genesis chapter 1 looking at verse 14, Elohim said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons." That word seasons is H4150, Moed or Moedim, and for days and for years. So for signs, which is like a beacon to look at and see something, or an indicator. And then we have the Moed, the seasons, which is to tell us what time or what assembly is approaching, what day of convocation is approaching. That's Genesis chapter 1 verse 14. That connects with what we just read in Psalms chapter 104 verse 19, where he says he appointed the moon, Yareyak, for seasons, Moed. Now, I know we talked about this in the beginning, but it's good to see if we can just talk about it again. Psalms 136, verse 7 to 9. To him that made the great lights, for his mercy endureth forever. The sun to rule by day, for his mercy endureth forever. The moon, Yareyak, and stars to rule by night, for his mercy endureth forever. This matches up completely with the creation account in Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 to 18, showing that the lesser light that rules the night is the moon as well as the stars. So we looked over three aspects of the month. We looked over Kodesh, which we saw means month and indicates a new month as well, or a beginning of a month as well. We saw Yarak, which means month, and is also used in Isaiah chapter 60 verse 20 as moon, used interchangeably between month and moon. We saw Yareyak, which in scripture is 26 times using moon, but the root word for that word is Yarak, meaning month, or the compared word is Yarak. And that Psalms 136 verse 8 and 9 show that the sun, moon, and stars is what's referring to the greater and lesser light in Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 to 18. So now, to have a calendar in which the month is not utilized for days or for nights or for months or for appointed times, it's not biblical. We just looked at the scripture, and the word for moon and the word for month and the word for moon cycle is all indicating a timetable or use to indicate time, a time of the year, a time to assemble, and as well as a time to recognize what days and years begin, where it ends, the months in between. There's no separation between those two. Now, I wanted to also point out an issue with Psalms 81. Psalms 81. Now, Psalms 81, the whole chapter itself, the context of the chapter itself, is the deliverance from Egypt. We know that according to Exodus chapter 12, that the deliverance from Egypt occurred on the 15th day. Matter of fact, Numbers chapter 33 verse 3 tells us that they left Ramses, or they left Egypt, on the 15th day of the first month, the 15th day of Abib. So, with that being said, I just wanted to let everybody know, when using the moon to indicate the days of the month, we see that the moon cycle is at a full moon at the 15th day of the month, meaning that on the 15th day there's a full moon, and the full moon was when they departed from Egypt, when they were captive when Israel was captive in Egypt. So let's look at this. We're going to read verse 1 to 3 first, and then we're going to keep going down. Verse 1 to 3 says, Sing aloud unto Elohim, our strength. Make a joyful noise unto Elohim of Jacob. Take a psalm, bring hither a timbrel, and the pleasant harp with the psaltery. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon. That word is Kodesh. In the time appointed. The scripture is translated the time appointed, but the word is kaseh, which means the fullness or full moon. Full moon. That's what it says. So because the full moon, the feast of the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, as well as the first day of Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, always lands on a full moon. When it says here, blow the trumpet in the new moon, in the fullness or the time appointed is referring to the solemn feast, which is the next sentence right after that. It says, blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the full moon, on our solemn feast day. Now understand that is the root word is covered, but the root word doesn't determine what the word is now, because it is not the root word. It is a different word. The context of this word is not based off of the root. Though it may have some type of connection, simply here it's not referring to the root word, which means covered. So it says to blow the trumpet in the full moon, in the new moon, on our solemn feast. The feast usually occurs on, well, not the feast usually, but the two main feasts, Feast of Unleavened Bread and Tabernacles, always begin on the full moon. But here specifically, it's talking about Egypt. Let's see. Verse 4 says, for this was a statute for Israel and a Torah, or mishpat, or ordinance of Elohim of Jacob. He ordained in Joseph for a testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt, where I heard a language that I understood not. I removed his shoulder from the burden. His hands were delivered from the pots. Thou called in trouble, and I delivered you, and I answered you in the secret place of thunder, and I proved you at the waters of Meribah. Hear, O my people, I will testify unto you, O Israel, if thou wilt hearken unto me. There shall no strange God be with you, neither shalt thou worship any strange God. For I am Yah, your Elohim, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of your mouth. Open your mouth wide, and I will fill it. So we see that Yah is referring to the time that he brought them out of Egypt. He's using the indicator of Joseph, saying that he ordained Joseph as a testimony. Matter of fact, Joseph himself instructed the Israelites to take his bones with them when they leave Egypt. So there was already this understanding that they were going to leave Egypt. So here we know that they left Egypt on the 15th day of the month, according to the Numbers chapter 33, verse 3. So the word fullness in verse 3, or the word full moon, is definitely accurate, because the context of this chapter is referring to when they left Egypt. When they left Egypt on the same day of the feast. They left Egypt on the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is a full moon. So this is not talking about a conjunction. This is talking about a full moon, and a full moon is always there when the Feast of Unleavened Bread begins and when the Feast of Tabernacles begin. So as we recap, we see Kodesh, Yarak, and Yareyak. Do not confuse one another. They both reveal a moon cycle as well as the month cycle. They both mean moon. Yareyak means moon 26 times in scripture. The root word of Yareyak is Yarak, and the word Yarak means moon, which means months, and is also used as moon in the scripture as well. So there's no way that we can deny that the moon is involved in the timing of the days and the years, of the appointed times, etc., etc. So I hope that this is clear. As far as the aspect of the moon, utilizing the moon to determine months, I think that this is extremely important to understand. And I think that the word Kodesh, meaning new, is simply referring to the new light cycle that usually occurs on the moon. Each day is a different phase or light phase of the moon. Remember, the moon was created as a light to rule the night. So the light itself is also a sign indicating the days that passes. So the light reveals to us what day of the month it actually is. Since the full moon is always on the 15th, if you count backwards, you'll see that the very first, or the day after the complete black moon, the day after that would be the beginning, or the beginning of the light cycle on the moon, which the word Kodesh would apply perfectly, because the word Kodesh means to renew. To renew what? To renew the light source or the light cycle that's on the moon to rule the night. So it begins with a very small portion of light. It climaxes at the full moon, and then it ends at a complete dark moon. The dark moon, or the conjunction, is the end of the month, which is a good indicator for us to know that the next day would be the beginning of the light on the moon. I hope that this was clear. You got any questions, please email us. Let me know. Check us out, 4alc.com. Subscribe for our YouTube page. Follow our Facebook page, Fourth Angels Learning Center. If you got any questions, please give us a comment, send us an email, and I'll definitely get back to you with scripture to make sure that we are lining up with the word accordingly. All right, brothers and sisters, you guys have a blessed day. Shalom.